I remember when I ended up going down the stairs, I ended up realizing that all the lights were turned off. I was super confused and totally lost until I ended up going inside my living room and saw my babysitter setting up candles around the Satan symbol. And I remember word for word, she said to me, "Baba, come love me now." Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another really insane but terrifying story. Now, it is October, and I have a ton of scary stories to tell you. But this story all starts off back in my high school years, and this was my grade 9 year. Now, in grade 9, I was just a basic gamer, and honestly, since I played video games so much and focused on girls, I really had no time to actually focus on school. If anything, my school grades were lacking really badly, and I remember one day when I came home, I ended up seeing my mom and dad in my bedroom super upset. I was super confused on why they were in there, and I looked at both of them saying, "Mom, Dad, what are you guys doing in my room? Bubba, do you know what this is?" And at that moment, my dad ends up pulling up a brown envelope. And brown envelopes, especially that have my school name on it, is never a good sign, because I recognized that it was my report card. I remember I looked at him and said, where'd you guys get that?" "Bubba, we know you hide this under your bed, and we opened it and looked at it. You are slacking in school." "Well, I'm not really slacking. It's just school's getting really difficult. You know, it's high school." "Do you need a tutor?" No, I don't need a tutor. I can figure things out." I remember my parents were trying to reason with me, but I'm gonna be honest, I had no good reason on why I was actually not doing good in school. So my parents decided to take it upon themselves, and my mom comes in saying, "Bubba, since you're not doing good in school, we're going to be taking away your video games while me and your dad leave for a trip." "Wait, what? What do you mean you're gonna take away my video games?" At that moment, I remember my mom ends up walking up to my gaming desk, and she ends up taking away my Xbox controller. And I got super upset. So upset to the point where I was just like freaking out at them and throwing a tantrum. To be fair, I was in grade 9. I didn't know what else to do. And since I was super upset, I just didn't understand why they were taking away my Xbox controller. But then that's when my dad said, "Bubba, the video games need to stop. You need to focus on school. You understand, yes?" "Yeah, no, I understand," is what I said, because I knew there was no arguing with my father. At that moment, I remember they ended up taking the controller to the bedroom, and they ended up packing for the trip that they had to go on. I don't know exactly where they were going. To be honest, my parents back when I was in high school always went on vacation to basically have a good time together. I don't really know, nor do I want to know what my parents do on vacation. But going on with the story, I remember as they were packing in the room, I just kept basically being all upset in my bedroom, and it got to the point where I just sat down and just ended up watching TikToks on my phone to basically pass the time. But as I was scrolling through angrily, out of nowhere, my parents ended up walking into my bedroom saying, "Okay, Bubba, we're leaving. Don't do anything silly and focus on school." "Yeah, whatever," is what I told them, and they ended up leaving my room. I remember hearing my parents leave the driveway with their car, and I was just sitting in my room still really upset. Like, you gotta understand, me not having video games was like me not having the internet. Like, it was literally the best way to connect with my friends and basically talk smack online. But then one thing led to another. I remember I ended up hearing a really weird sound coming from my window, and right as I look outside, I ended up seeing a really old, busted black truck pulling into my driveway. Now at this moment, I looked outside really questioning who in the world was parking in my driveway. But then I ended up seeing a girl wearing all black, a really short skirt, and looking really emo coming out of the car and walking towards my front door. Now, no joke, I believe in the term stranger danger, and even though this girl was hired to take care of me, there was no way I was gonna let an emo girl watch over me. Like, Mom, where do you hire these babysitters? Anyways, I remember she ended up basically knocking on the door, and I heard her knock, but I decided to totally refuse to answer the door because she looked terrifying. Obviously though, one thing led to another. From basic knocking, she ended up slamming on the door. She kept slamming it over and over and over to the point where I actually ended up going under my blanket and just plugging my ears because she just wouldn't stop. If anything, I thought she was gonna break my door down. But after 2 minutes of knocking and slamming on my door, all of a sudden it all stopped. I remember I came out of my blankets really confused on what happened, and right as I decided to basically leave my bedroom, I remember I opened the door and boom, there she was. I just saw the emo girl staring at me dead in the eye saying, "Why didn't you answer the door? I was knocking. Didn't you hear me?" No, I didn't. Sorry, I had headphones in." "Oh, well, turn them down next time. Hi, I'm your babysitter." For some reason, when she was speaking to me, her head would tilt kind of like in a weird angle, and for some reason, she just would not stop staring at me me in the most weirdest way possible. Like, no joke, she had like the eyes as if she wanted to literally kill me. I remember I just kept looking at her and kind of stepping backwards because she got way too close to my personal space. And one thing led to another. She ended up walking into my bedroom saying, "Wow, you have a lot of stuff in your room. Do you want to go downstairs and show me around?" Yeah, sure. I remember I ended up giving her a basic house tour of, you know, the living room, the kitchen, and the basement that I would never dare to go into, and basically showing her around. But for some reason, every time we walked into a different room, she kept drawing like upside down crosses around the place with this oil that she had. I don't know if she was trying to haunt my house, but this girl was definitely on some demon time, and not in the good way like the devil's tango. But going on with the story, I remember after a while, I ended up looking at her saying, "So, I was just wondering, do you want to like maybe make something to eat?" "Oh, are you hungry, Baba?" "Yeah, I'm pretty hungry." "Okay, let's go see what's in your fridge." I remember this girl ends up walking into my kitchen and opens my fridge door as if she owned the place. And she ended up going through everything, but then she looks over at me in the most weirdest way possible and says, "There's nothing in here." What do you mean? There's tons of food in there. I remember I looked inside and I saw there was enough to make a grilled cheese, there was yogurt, there was like milk, there was basically a lot of things for her to make me. But for some reason, she wasn't having it, and she said to me, "Let me check your freezer." I remember she ends up opening my freezer and she takes out raw steaks that we had in there. Now, I thought this girl was trying to make me a steak, so I wasn't complaining at first. But what this girl did was the most weirdest thing ever, because she ends up getting these raw steaks and she puts it on a plate, absolutely raw, not even cooking it, and hands it to me saying, "Here you go, Bubba. Get some meat in you." Are you not gonna cook it?" "No, it tastes better raw." At that moment, she ends up also putting one steak on her plate that she got, and she goes to my kitchen table, sits down, and eats the meat raw and bloody. I remember there was blood of the meat dripping down from her mouth, and I was so disgusted and freaked out to the point where I didn't know what to think. Like, this babysitter was psycho. I remember that moment, I just put the plate down and I just said, I'm not really hungry anymore, because I lost my appetite from seeing that. And I ended up going upstairs and I actually ended up hiding underneath my bed because I was terrified of this babysitter. This babysitter was ultimately insane. One thing led to another though. After being under my bed for like almost an hour and a half, I heard no noise happening in the house and it was getting really late at night. Now, usually I would probably end up playing video games, but since my parents took away my controller, I couldn't do that. And since the house was so quiet, I started to worry. So I remember I ended up opening my bedroom door and I realized the lights in my house were all off. There was not a single light on. So I ended up turning on my flashlight on my phone and going down the stairs. And what I saw was extremely insane, because right as I went down the stairs with my flashlight on, I ended up going into my living room and I saw someone drew the Satan star symbol and the babysitter was setting up candles around it. I remember she looked at me and said, "Oh, Bubba, sorry, I was just making my bed," as she tilts her head once again and stares at me with her crazy eyes. And that's when I told her, are you sure you're not more comfortable on the couch?" "No, I want to appreciate my father." "Wait, what? Your dad's coming over?" "No, silly. I'm talking about Lucifer." At that moment, she ends up laying down on the floor in the middle of the Satan star that she drew in my living room. And she ends up basically pretending to have a seizure in my living room floor around this thing. And at that moment, I was freaking out because she just started roaring as if she was like a dinosaur. I remember at that moment, I didn't know what to do, but one thing was for sure, I knew that this girl was on some major demon time. And no, I don't mean the devil's tango. I mean like actual demon time. So I remember me being so freaked out, I ended up actually running up the stairs to my bedroom and I ended up packing my bag full of stuff so I could go sleep over at my friend's house. And that's exactly what I did. I ended up jumping out my window, running straight to his house, and when I ended up going to my friend's place, I remember slamming on the door as much as I could until my friend's mom ended up answering the door saying, "Bubba, what are you doing here? It's 9:30. It's a school night. Aren't your parents worried about you? You gotta let me in, please. I have a crazy babysitter. She's insane and I can't handle her." I remember I ended up breaking down in tears in front of her and she ended up letting me in. And one thing led to another. My friend's mom ended up calling my parents and my parents came back just in time to see all the craziness that was happening. Honestly, even though it's the Halloween season, I gotta say, having a scary babysitter is terrifying. But if you guys don't want this babysitter and love your parents, then follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.